Hey there, welcome. I'm Amrita from Artria Jewelry, and today we're going to make a beautiful set of heart jewelry. So there's a heart pendant, a pair of heart and crystal earrings, and a heart ring. Tools you will need: a ring mandrel. I have a steel ring mandrel here, but if you have a plastic one, that works too. But if you can invest in one of these, this will last a lifetime and totally worth it, because you can hammer against it to texture your metal, which you can't really do with a plastic one. A rubber mallet, and you don't have to buy a spendy one online, but I'll link an Amazon one for you. You could also just head over to your Dollar Tree and get one of these as well. A jeweler's hammer or a small ball peen hammer. This is to texture and work harden the metal. A steel bench block. I'll have this link down below as well. And then my trusted pliers, so the 6-step looping pliers, my bent nose pliers, needle nose pliers, a pair of flush cutters. You'll also need a metal file. Lastly, a ruler. Materials you will need: 12 gauge copper wire for the pendant, and 16 gauge copper wire for the ring and the pair of earrings. You will also need a pair of ear wires. For this ring, we are going to use 16 gauge copper wire, and you can go up to 14 or 12 if you want to as well, but 16 will suffice. And that will get you about a ring of this dimension. But this ring is going to be adjustable. I am going to make it about between that 7 to 9 size of the ring. So I'm going to make it a little larger, and then we can cross it over to adjust it. So to do that, I'm going to cut myself 4.5 inches of the 16 gauge copper wire, and I'm going to flush cut both ends. So at 2.25 inch is approximately that midpoint. I am going to fold this wire over itself and then squeeze that together. So that is going to be the center of our heart, and you'll see how that forms now. And then I'm going to take my round nose or looping pliers and hold the bend right between the pliers, and I'm going to fold this over and toward myself. So that's going to be the one wing of the heart. And then I'm going to flip the wire over and do that on this side as well, and fold that over. I'm just going to cross it, and there we have the heart. And then to make it a ring, I want the heart to be centered on my finger like that. So to make it a ring, I'm going to bend this wire over and do the same for this one. Hold it and bend that perpendicular to the heart. And then before I shape the wire around the round ring mandrel, I'm going to texture the heart. So I'm going to hold it against my bench block and slowly tap. Make sure not to tap too hard where the wires are on top of each other, because you don't want to damage the wire. I'm just going to texture the heart around it though. flip it over and just straighten that wire out. Just a few gentle taps. And here is where I'm now going to move this bench block and wrap this around the mandrel. So I'm just going to hold it down and wrap the wire around the mandrel. And then we are going to fold this wire upon itself again, just to make sure. You can either just sit and file this out, but because we're making this an adjustable ring and this is a pretty thin wire, I'm going to fold it on itself and make a loop at the end, like that. And then I'm going to do the other one facing the opposite direction. We're going to fold it on itself and make that loop again. And I'm just going to run my finger there to see if I find it's catching. I'm going to squeeze that down further, just until it's smooth and I don't feel my skin catching in that. So there, the ring is already taking shape. We have a little more to do. So I'm going to put it back on the mandrel. And I'm just going to use the flat side of my ball peen hammer, since I've already textured the copper, just to tap it down to make sure it's round. And if you feel it's not textured enough, you can flip it and texture it as well. At the current size, it's a size 7.5, but then because it's adjustable, we can go all the way and make it a size 10 too. And there, you have a beautiful heart ring. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. So we just made ourselves a beautiful heart ring, and now we're going to do a forged heart pendant. I'm using 12 gauge copper wire, and this is a really thick copper wire. You can do the same thing with a lower gauge, but if you're looking at hammering the copper wire, a 14 gauge or a 12 gauge is a really good thickness. We're going to need 4 inches of this 12 gauge copper wire. So I'm going to take that. When you're cutting such thick copper wire, make sure you don't use your fine flush cutters. You can use an older pair or use the pair all the way to the bottom of the joint. Don't use the tip because you can snap the tip of your pliers. And that happens to the best of us. I've snapped a tip here, as you can see. So I keep this pair to cut the thicker wires and not use this for any tips. So here's where I hold it all the way back and then flush cut it. I still want a flush cut, I just don't want to use my fine new pair of flush cutters. Now, like with the ring, we're going to find the midpoint of this heart, and that's 4 inches, so about that 2-inch mark. And we are going to fold that down. And if you find you can't squeeze this because this is pretty tough, you could use your bench block and you could use the rubber mallet and hammer that down. And that will make it easier to then squeeze that last bit together. And then, like we did with the ring, I'm going to pull these two wires apart and shape it around the mandrel at the biggest step. This is the six-step looping plier. There, the heart's taking shape. That's the basic shape of our heart. And this is now where we're going to texture this metal and forge this beautiful heart pendant. So I'm going to use my ball peen hammer to texture it. And because this is thicker wire, I am using a little more force, but most of the weight of the hammer is doing the job. And make sure when you're hammering, you're not holding it all the way close there. One, you protect your fingers if you hold it all the way at the back, but also then it's less pressure on your wrist, your fingers, and your shoulder when you're hammering, holding it there. You get more leverage than if you're holding it up close. I'm going to hammer one side all the way down. And then the other side of the heart. Watch your finger. And I'm hammering the top a little flatter because I like to have that accent on the top. And then if you find your heart has now formed more of a W, you will hold that again and push the wire down. Now for the finish at the bottom, I'm going to flatten the ends first, and then we're going to use a steel file to file that edge down. See how that's flattening out? We're going to do the same thing here. file that smooth. So this side's done. We're going to do that here as well. And now I'm just going to cross those wires over to close out the pendant. And you can cross them over to make it crisscross all the way like that, which I think looks very cute. Or you can overlap it where you don't see it cross that much. You could use different types of cords, or you could use a jump ring and pass a chain through it. So I'm just going to take this leather cord and hook it on one side of that. And there we have a beautiful forged heart pendant. If you're enjoying this video so far, please like, share, and subscribe. And now we're going to go on to making a pair of heart earrings. So for this pair of earrings, we are going to be using 16 gauge copper wire, and I have two lengths of 2.5 inches each of this wire. To start, I'm going to make sure an end is flush cut, and I'm going to use the smallest step on my looping pliers to make a P-loop. And so we're going to have a closed loop, and I'm going to do that on both the wires. When I make earrings, I like to do both simultaneously for each step so we can get them to look as close to each other as possible. And I try to also make them in a mirror image. The reason I'm making these loops first is to have a space to dangle my crystals. If you're not using crystals, then don't do the loops and you'll just hammer out the ends like we did with the pendant. But I wanted a place to dangle these crystals. So if you are using crystals, you will need 2 red crystals of your choice. I'm using 8 mm faceted mirrored glass crystals. And then you would also need 24 or 22 gauge copper wire to make your headpin. Or you could use pre-made headpins, get 2-inch headpins for that. And here's what I meant by if you don't want to do the dangles with the crystal, you can just do this finish on your earrings. So now I'm going to find the midpoint from where the wire intersects here to this end. And I'm using my ruler to identify that midpoint. So it's about 2 inches, 2.2 inches. So I'm going to go in there and do about 1 inch. going to fold that wire over and squeeze. I'm going to do that with this one too. There we go. And then we're going to use that second last step of the looping pliers to fold that wire over. And then we're going to do that on this end as well. And then I'm going to make sure that my loop is towards the outside of the heart. So I'm just going to twist that around if it's gotten twisted inside. And I'm going to polish off this end with my file to make sure it's smooth. And then I'm going to just make sure that the heart, the two pieces touch each other. And there, that's a cute little heart. And we're going to have the crystal dangle from here, and we're going to put the hook, the ear wires up there. We're going to do this on this end too. File this one. We're going to do the same here, have this cross and line up there. And then I'm going to make sure I flip that over so they both are matching. And I like to make sure the length matches, because when I have the wire dangling, I want the earrings to be about the same length. So we're just going to make sure that that's aligning pretty close. Okay. And here's where you bring your steel bench block back and texture the wire. Metal is bound to shift when you hammer, so again, just move it back into place and make sure it all lines up. Now we have our pair of hearts made. We're going to dangle these little crystals, well, not so little crystals, from the bottom. And then we're going to attach the ear wires on the top. This is a great time to use some of your scraps of wire if you have them left over from other projects. So for instance, I have this here. This is 24 gauge copper wire. And I'm going to make 2 knotted head pins for these crystals. I have a video up on different sorts of head pins you can make with wire. I'll link that up here in the cards and down in the description below. But if you found that you don't have head pins, this is a very handy way to make yourself a pair. And I'm just going to wrap around the smallest step and do 3 wraps to secure it and snip that off. And then make the second quick head pin. There we go. And then I'm going to open up this loop by twisting it and then slip the crystal on and then twist that back. And then we're going to do the same on this one. Twist it open, slip the crystal on and twist it back. And then we're going to slip on our ear wires. And I'm going to slip it onto this side, making sure my hammered side is towards the front of the ear wire. And close that out. And do the same on this one. Close that out. And there we have a beautiful pair of heart earrings. And there we've now made a beautiful hammered pendant, a pair of earrings, and a beautiful ring. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Happy Valentine's Day.